As a Franciscan friar, a follower of St. Francis of Assisi, a saint who devoted his life to radically living the gospel of Jesus Christ and seeking to be an instrument of God's peace, I love that the first word of the risen Christ to his followers is peace. Jesus Christ comes into the upper room and offers true peace. Peace be with you, he says. The first gift of the risen Lord is peace. Now, knowing what had happened, how the disciples had abandoned Jesus as he was led away to be executed, and how they were now gathered together in a secure place, afraid of what might happen to them as being associates with Christ. Considering that, one might expect Jesus' first words to them might be something like, "Where were you guys? Why did you leave me?" Instead, the risen Christ shows them loving mercy. He has forgiven them and offers them peace. And what was the response of those disciples? The disciples rejoiced when they saw the Lord. And that is his second gift, the joy of the risen Lord. This is God's wish for our world, peace and joy. Then the risen Lord gives the gift that makes both of these possible. Christ breathes on his disciples and says, "Receive the Holy Spirit. Whose sins you forgive are forgiven them, and whose sins you retain are retained." The risen Christ offers the disciples and all humanity, you and me, forgiveness and reconciliation with God. His is a mission of divine mercy, of forgiveness, of unconditional love. We have killed the Son of God, abandoned him, and out of God's merciful, unconditional love, God forgives us and still lovingly embraces us. The risen Christ comes to us in our fears and our anxiety, in our sinfulness, and embraces us. It's unbelievable. So much so that you and I can understand Thomas's doubts. Thomas had a hard time believing that Christ has risen from the dead. He had to see it himself. But perhaps it was more than just questioning whether Jesus was risen and that this was real. Thomas was possibly unbelieving that Jesus would come back to them, to him, after they had abandoned Jesus, after the disciples had given up on him, doubted. Thomas's questions may be symbolic of the doubt any one of us could have that Jesus could still love us, that Jesus can forgive us and show us mercy when we don't deserve it. But accepting that merciful love of God is our way to salvation. And it should change the way that you and I go about in the world, like it did with the apostles and Thomas. They became instruments of God's loving peace. You know, so many people that I encounter, especially college students, they question if God could love them because they know that they are selfish and sinful. The doubt that so many of us are paralyzed with is to doubt that God could truly and totally love us. That the merciful Christ could be coming into my life. Who could love me that way? But we now know the whole story, don't we? How Easter has changed everything, you and me. Can we accept God's love? Do you and I follow the risen Christ by offering loving forgiveness? As Pope Francis reminds us, the risen Jesus passed on to his church as her first task his own mission of bringing to all the concrete message of forgiveness. This is the first task, to announce forgiveness. This visible sign of his mercy brings with it peace of heart and joy of the renewed encounter with the Lord. The resurrection of Jesus Christ proves that through God's merciful forgiveness, God does indeed love us. And that is what can lead you and me to the sense of peace the risen Christ first offers. The risen Christ comes at Easter with the mission of transforming the world. And it starts with peace, a peace that is so much more than just the absence of conflict. The peace of Christ is transformative and renewing as it forgives the sinful, embraces the doubting, welcomes back those who have abandoned God, heals the brokenhearted, and respects the dignity and value of every woman, man, and child as a daughter and son of our Creator God. My sisters and brothers, may we embrace the divinely merciful gift of the transforming peace of Christ always. The Spirit that Jesus breathes on the apostles on Easter night is breathed upon you and me as well. May we cooperate with God's grace to offer merciful forgiveness as we ourselves seek forgiveness. And may you and I always realize God's Holy Spirit of love in our midst that enables you and me to be the instruments of the peace of the risen one. May the Lord bless you with peace and all good.